currently am very fascinated with the way math appears in other cultures. In the standard math curriculum, we learn a lot about how mathematics appeared in the Greeks era, but there are a lot of other cultures that had different starting points in math, and I've been pretty interested in trying to understand where those came from. So I was mentioning this math that appears in different cultures. I want to tell you a story that comes from the mathematical tradition of the Chokwe people in Angola. There they had this beautiful tradition where they would use math in a kind of performance art way to tell stories. They would meet at the end of a long day and sit around drawing figures and telling stories. The way this worked is that when I'm drawing these grids, I'm actually imagining a grid of boxes. And in order to memorize a drawing, I'm going to memorize a certain location of mirrors. And for now, I'll go ahead and show you the mirrors, even though these are hidden in the actual pictures. And the way the drawing works is I imagine a ray of light bouncing across the figure. And every time I reach a mirror, it bounces. I'm doing it with these smooth edges because this is slightly prettier. But you can see that it's a very geometric, light-based motion. So this figure, for instance, is called the chase chicken, and they would use this as a way of describing what happens when you chase a chicken. And so the way I remember these pictures is by remembering complicated sort of mirror configurations, and then I don't have to think about what it's going to look like. I just have to draw the light bouncing. The key part of this tradition is that one needs to speak as they draw. So they would tell a story that goes alongside the drawing. These drawings are called lusona, and the plural version is sona. And my favorite of the sona are the ones that actually show you the culture and some of the ideas that people were thinking about in the 1950s and 60s and such. And so this is one of my favorite stories. So I'm going to begin by setting my guide points as before. This is the story of Kawa the dog. I'm going to have these two big dots, which are not part of the algorithm, but they're there for sort of aesthetic reasons. And so it goes like this. One day, the hunter took Kawa the dog out hunting. They went into the woods and found a big boar. Upon returning home, the hunter took the meat of the boar and gave it to Kawa's owner, leaving Kawa with only the bones. The next day, the hunter invited Kawa hunting again, but Kawa refused. And Kawa said, "You should take my owner, he's the one who takes the meat." It's hard to not relate this to the slavery trade that was happening and the colonialism of Europe in Africa. When I show people these drawings and I tell them that this is math, they're often a little bit confused. And that's because our notion of math, at least the one we learn in high school and so on, comes from a very specific source. We have this algebra, this ancient Greek geometry. But in reality, in modern day math, at least the math I do, looks a lot more like these drawings. The math we do is all about sort of this field of combinatorics, which is about mirrors and reflections. It's about symmetries. And these pictures are a lot closer to the math I do than triangles and prime numbers and what have you. My first exposure to math was through an English teacher I had in middle school. But this teacher was kind of a polymath, and he had this big catalog of journals, like pop sci, pop math journals that he would have. And one day I kind of zoned out and wasn't paying attention to him and instead started reading one of these journals. When I was reading these, I was under the false impression that math was about someone sitting in a corner thinking really hard, when in reality math is much more cultural. It's a bunch of people working on problems together. This art, this African Sona art, is very similar. The math of that art was a cultural activity. You would sit around in a circle and look at the math. And that has been the same in all the different math cultures that I've seen that use math in their arts.